I may be invisible to you, but I see everything." Those words echoed in my mind as I knelt on the cold marble floor of the executive bathroom, scrubbing at a stubborn stain, while my knees screamed in protest. 62 years old with arthritis, eating away at my joints like termites in old wood. Yet here I was at 9:47 p.m., still cleaning up after people who made more money in an hour than I did in a month. My name is Elena Garcia, and I had been invisible for most of my life. The pain in my knees flared as I pushed myself up, leaning heavily on my cleaning cart for support. The bottle of prescription pills in my pocket rattled, a reminder that I needed to take them, but also that I was running low. At $175 per refill with my pitiful insurance, I'd have to choose between medication and electricity next week. Again, almost done for the night. "Mrs. Garcia." The voice belonged to Joey, the night security guard, a kind-faced young man who was one of the few people in Meridian Tower who acknowledged my existence. "Just finishing the executive floor, Joey," I said, massaging my left knee. "How's your mama doing?" "Still having those headaches." Joey's face softened. He'd told me about his mother's migraines last week when I'd found him rubbing his temples during his break. "Better, thanks for asking. That tea you suggested helped." I smiled, genuinely pleased. "Here Babuna works wonders. My abuela swore by it." "You heading home soon?" "It's getting late, and you know how sketchy the bus gets after 10. Just Mr. Harrington's office left to clean, then I'm gone." I gestured toward the imposing mahogany door at the end of the hallway, the CEO's corner office, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Joey nodded. "Well, don't work too hard. Good night, Mrs. Garcia." "Good night, Joey. Tell your mama I'm praying for her." As he walked away, I pushed my cart toward Mr. Harrington's office. The floor was eerily silent. Everyone else had gone home to their families, their hobbies, their lives. Me, I had another hour of work, then a 45-minute bus ride to my tiny one-bedroom apartment in a building where the elevator had been broken for 3 months. Then 5 hours of sleep before waking up to do it all again. I'd been cleaning for 47 years. First houses to put my daughter through college, then hotels, and for the past 8 years, the executive floor of Meridian Enterprises. The pay was barely enough to cover rent and medications. But what choice did I have? No retirement savings. Just Social Security that wouldn't cover half my expenses. My daughter Teresa lived across the country with her husband and children. She sent money when she could, but they were struggling too, with college tuitions looming for my grandchildren. As I approached Mr. Harrington's office, I noticed the door was slightly ajar, with light spilling out into the hallway. Strange. He usually locked up tight before leaving. I was about to knock a habit of courtesy, though executives rarely extended the same to me, when I heard a woman's laugh, followed by the clink of glasses, then a low, masculine murmur that I recognized immediately as Richard Harrington's distinctive baritone. "God, Melanie, you drive me crazy," he said. "I've been thinking about this all day." I froze. Mr. Harrington was married to Catherine, a tall, elegant woman who organized the company's charity gala every Christmas, and who treated me like furniture whenever she visited the office. The voice I heard definitely wasn't Catherine's. Another feminine giggle. "We shouldn't be doing this here. What if someone comes in? It's almost 10. The only person still here is the cleaning lady, and she doesn't matter." The casual dismissal stung, though I don't know why I expected anything different. Moving aside slightly, I could see their reflection in the glass bookcase opposite the door. Mr. Harrington had a young woman, his new marketing director, I realized with a start, pressed against his desk. His hand was sliding up her thigh, bunching her skirt, while his mouth worked at her neck. Her lipstick was smeared across his collar, a vivid crimson gash against the white fabric. I backed away silently. What they were doing wasn't right, but it wasn't my business either. I was just here to clean, not to judge. My mother had taught me long ago, Elena, in this world, the poor cannot afford opinions about the rich. As I turned to leave, planning to come back later, my cart bumped against a trash can. Knocking it over, the clatter echoed down the silent hallway like a gunshot. What was that? The woman's voice was sharp with alarm. I quickly righted the can and moved to push my cart away, but not before catching Mr. Harrington's eye through the crack in the door. His face hardened when he saw me, his expression shifting from surprise to cold fury in an instant. "It's nothing," I heard him say to the woman. "Just the cleaning staff." I hurried away, my heart pounding. Something in his eyes had scared me, a calculation, an assessment of threat. I'd seen that look before, from men with power facing those without it. For the rest of my shift, I avoided the CEO's office, cleaning everything else with meticulous care before finally gathering my courage to return. By then, the office was dark and empty, the door firmly closed. I used my master key to enter and went about my work as usual, though my hands trembled slightly as I emptied his trash can. Inside, among crumpled papers and coffee cups, was a woman's earring. I recognized it as the same gold hoop the marketing director Melanie Richardson, that was her name, had been wearing in the reflection I'd seen earlier. Without thinking, I pocketed it. Perhaps I could discreetly return it to her desk tomorrow. The next morning, I was called to Human Resources. Before my shift even started, the summons came via text as I was transferring buses. The message curt and offering no explanation. By the time I arrived at Meridian Tower, my stomach was in knots. The HR manager was named Brenda Nichols, a thin woman with sharp features who had worked at Meridian for 3 years. In all that time, she had never once made eye contact with me, despite passing me in the hallway nearly every day. Mrs. Garcia, she said as I entered her office, her eyes fixed on her computer screen. "Please take a seat." I sat, my knees protesting the movement. The chair was too high, forcing my feet to dangle slightly, making me feel like a child called to the principal's office. "I'm afraid I have some difficult news," Brenda continued, finally looking up but focusing on a point just over my shoulder. "Meridian Enterprises has decided to terminate your employment, effective immediately." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What? Why? I don't understand." "Mr. Harrington has expressed concerns about your performance. He's noted that you've been looking tired lately, moving slowly. We're concerned about your health and ability to perform your duties." She slid a paper across the desk. "Here's 2 weeks' severance pay. We'll need your ID badge before you leave." My hands trembled as I stared at the paper. 8 years of service, never missing a day, never calling in sick even when my arthritis was so bad I could barely walk. And this was how it ended, because I'd accidentally seen something I shouldn't have. "May I speak with Mr. Harrington?" My voice sounded small, even to my own ears. "He's in meetings all day. This decision is final." Brenda's tone made it clear there would be no discussion. "Building security will escort you to collect your personal belongings," as if I were a criminal, as if I might steal something on my way out. "I don't have any personal belongings here," I said quietly, "just my coat in the break room. Then security will escort you to retrieve your coat and then to the exit." I removed the plastic ID badge I'd worn for 8 years and placed it on her desk. The photo showed a younger me, with fewer lines around my eyes and darker hair. I'd been 54 then, already considered old by corporate America's standards, but still with some fight left in me. Joey was waiting outside HR, looking uncomfortable in his security uniform. "Mrs. Garcia, I'm so sorry," he whispered as he walked me to the break room. "They just told me this morning. It's not your fault, Mio," I assured him, though my heart was breaking. "You're just doing your job." We retrieved my worn wool coat, and Joey walked me to the lobby. "This isn't right," he said as we reached the exit. "You're the hardest worker here." "Thank you, Joey," I said, my voice thick with unshed tears. "Take care of your mama." Outside, the May sunshine felt mockingly bright and warm. I stood on the sidewalk, suddenly unmoored. Where should I go? What should I do? How would I pay next month's rent, my medication? I hadn't even had time to say goodbye to the few friendly faces I'd come to know: the barista at the lobby coffee shop who sometimes gave me day-old pastries, the male clerk who shared pictures of his new baby with me, the young receptionist who practiced her Spanish with me during my dinner break. I sat heavily on a bench across from the building, my knees throbbing in time with my racing heart, trying to figure out what to do next. The severance check would cover rent for 2 weeks, maybe 3 if I cut back on food. But then what? At 62, who would hire me? Even the cleaning services preferred younger women, those who could move faster, scrub harder, climb ladders without wincing. That's when I noticed him, a small boy, maybe 10 or 11 years old, sitting cross-legged on the sidewalk with a cardboard box full of packages of gum. His dark hair fell across his forehead in uneven chunks, as if he'd cut it himself, and his brown skin was smudged with city grime. I'd seen him many times before, selling gum to business people entering and exiting the building. Sometimes I'd buy a pack, even though I didn't chew gum. He was just so thin, with those big, serious eyes that seemed too old for his face. Today, he looked particularly worn, his t-shirt frayed at the edges and a hole visible in one sneaker. "Not working today, Segura?" he asked in accented English when he spotted me, his head tilting curiously. "Not anymore, mio," I answered, fighting back tears. "They fired me." His face fell, genuine concern flickering across his features. "That's bad, very bad." He hesitated, then reached into his box and handed me a pack of gum. "For you, no charge." That simple kindness broke me. I began to sob right there on the street, my body shaking with the force of my grief and fear, not just for the job loss, but for everything, the years of invisibility, the ache in my knees that never went away, the loneliness of my tiny apartment, the photos of grandchildren I rarely saw in person. The boy Miguel, he told me, sat beside me, patting my hand awkwardly. He shared his small bottle of water and told me about his life. His mother cleaned houses, but had been sick lately with something in her lungs. They'd come from Guatemala 2 years ago. No papers, no insurance. He sold gum after school to help with food. "Mama says I'm the man of the house now," he said proudly. Then his face clouded. "But sometimes there's not enough money, even when she works all day." I knew that reality all too well. As the afternoon wore on, business executives streamed past us, most not even glancing our way. Invisible people, both of us. Occasionally, someone would toss $1 into Miguel's box for a 50-cent pack of gum, never waiting for change. The good deed for the day accomplished without the inconvenience of actual human connection. "It's better when it rains," Miguel confided. "People feel more sorry for me when I'm wet." The statement, delivered with such pragmatic acceptance, made my heart ache. "Do you come here every day?" I asked, realizing I'd seen him often but never really noticed his schedule. "After school," he nodded, "and weekends, except Sundays. Mama says that's for church and family." No matter what, I thought about my own Sundays, usually spent doing laundry and meal prep for the week, maybe calling Teresa if I wasn't too tired. When had I last been to church? When had I last done anything just for myself? Then Miguel suddenly straightened, his eyes widening. "There he is, the man who buys gum every day." He pointed to a tall black man in simple jeans and a button-down shirt, no tie, walking toward the building. "Mr. Jackson," Miguel called out, waving with the enthusiasm only children can muster for near strangers. The man turned, spotted Miguel, and smiled warmly. "Hey there, buddy, got my favorite today." "Yes, sir, spearmint, sugar-free." Miguel retrieved 2 packs from his box, holding them out proudly. The man, Mr. Jackson, handed Miguel a $20 bill. "Keep the change, my friend. How's school going?" "Good. I got an A on my math test yesterday." "That's what I like to hear. Keep it up." The man's smile was genuine, his interest seemingly sincere. As he took his gum, he noticed me sitting beside Miguel, still clutching my own pack of gum, eyes red from crying. "This is Mrs. Garcia," Miguel said by way of introduction. "She cleans the building, but got fired today for no reason." I felt embarrassed by my obvious distress, but Mr. Jackson showed no discomfort. Instead, he frowned slightly. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Robert Jackson." He extended his hand. "Elena Garcia," I replied, shaking it. His grip was firm but gentle, his hands smooth except for calluses on the fingertips, a typist's hands, not a laborer's. "Mrs. Garcia was always nice to me," Miguel continued earnestly. "She gives me sandwiches sometimes and let me use the bathroom inside when the security guards weren't looking." I felt my cheeks warm. It was against building policy to let non-employees use the facilities, but I couldn't bear to see the child dancing from foot to foot in obvious discomfort on cold days. Mr. Jackson studied me for a moment, then checked his watch. "I have a meeting, but I'd like to talk more. Miguel, can you give Mrs. Garcia my card? Tell her I'd appreciate a call." He handed Miguel a business card, nodded politely to me, and strode into the building. I looked at the card. Robert Jackson, founder and CEO, Nexus Innovations. Below the company name was a phone number and an email address. The card was heavy stock, minimalist in design, the kind of understated elegance that spoke of real money, not the flashy displays of the nouveau rich. Miguel beamed at me. "He's important, very rich, but he's kind. He always asks how I'm doing." In school, I tucked the card into my purse, not thinking much of it. Rich men didn't concern themselves with cleaning ladies, kind words and business cards notwithstanding. Besides, I had more pressing concerns, like how to tell my landlord I might not make next month's rent. The next 3 days passed in a blur of anxiety and futile job searching. I called every cleaning service in the city, but none were hiring, especially not women in their 60s. I called the small restaurant where I'd waitressed on weekends during Teresa's college years, but they had no openings. I even swallowed my pride and called Teresa, who wired me what she could spare, $200. That would help but not solve my problems. By the third day, my landlord had left 2 messages about the rent being due in a week. I sat at my small kitchen table, surrounded by bills and the few precious items I might be able to sell: my mother's silver crucifix, Teresa's high school graduation picture in its silver frame, the pearl earrings my husband had given me before cancer took him 20 years ago. That's when someone knocked at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Solicitors didn't usually make it past the building's security door. Had the landlord come in person to demand the rent? I peered through the peephole to see Miguel, his small face scrunched with excitement. "Mrs. Garcia," he exclaimed when I opened the door, "Mr. Jackson's been looking for you. He came by Meridian Tower every day, asking for you. I told him you weren't there anymore, but he gave me $20 to find you." "Find me? Why would he? He wants to see you right now. He's waiting in his car." Miguel grabbed my hand, tugging insistently. "Come on, it's important." Confused, but with nothing to lose, I grabbed my purse and followed Miguel down the 3 flights of stairs, my knees protesting each step. Outside, a sleek black car idled at the curb, not a limousine, but an expensive sedan with tinted windows. When the driver's door opened and Robert Jackson stepped out, I hardly recognized him. Gone were the casual clothes from our first meeting, replaced by an impeccable suit that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. "Mrs. Garcia," he said, his voice as calm and measured as I remembered, "I'm glad Miguel found you. Would you have dinner with me? There's something I'd like to discuss." I looked down at my worn dress and shabby cardigan, mortified at the thought of sitting in a restaurant with this clearly wealthy man. "Mr. Jackson, I'm not dressed for the restaurant has a private dining room," he said, as if reading my mind. "No one will see us but the staff, and they're paid well enough not to care what anyone wears." There was something in his tone, not pity, but understanding, that made me nod. Plus, I couldn't remember the last time I'd had a proper restaurant meal. 2 hours later, I sat across from Robert Jackson in a private dining room at a restaurant fancier than any I'd ever seen, still in my worn-out dress, feeling completely out of place despite the staff's respectful treatment. The waiter had brought course after course of exquisite food, and Robert had ordered for us both in perfect Spanish, surprising me with his fluency. "Why me?" I finally asked after the waiter had left us with our deserted delicate flan that reminded me of my mother's cooking. "Why track me down? Ask Miguel to find me." Robert set down his espresso cup. "My mother was a housekeeper," he said simply. "Worked for the same family in Greenwich, Connecticut, for 28 years. When she got sick cancer, they replaced her within a week. Never even called to check on her." His jaw tightened. "She died alone in a nursing home while I was overseas closing a deal. I didn't make it back in time. I didn't know what to say. I promised myself that when I had the means, I would never be the kind of man who treats people as disposable." He leaned forward. When Miguel told me how he'd been treated at Meridian, it hit home. Then I made some inquiries. I asked, suddenly nervous. About you, about Harrington, about Meridian. He studied me carefully. Tell me, Mrs. Garcia, what exactly did you see the night before you were fired? I hesitated, then told him about Harrington and Melanie Richardson, about the spilled trash can, about the cold look in the CEO's eyes when he realized I'd seen them. Robert nodded as if confirming something he already suspected. Here's what you probably don't know. Meridian Enterprises is on the verge of collapse. Harrington's been cooking the books and having affairs with half the executive staff. The board's looking for a reason to oust him, but they need evidence. And you know this because I've been planning to acquire Meridian for 6 months. They have a proprietary software that would integrate beautifully with my company's products. But I won't do business with people who treat others the way they treated you. He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a job offer for me, executive, assistant to the CEO, Nexus Innovations. The salary listed made me gasp, $85,000 per year, plus benefits, including comprehensive health insurance. I don't understand, I whispered, certain this was some sort of cruel joke. It's simple. I need someone who knows Meridian from the inside, someone who sees what others miss, someone ethical who won't be swayed by office politics. He smiled, slightly and frankly. I need someone to help me organize my life. My current assistant is leaving to have a baby, and I've been putting off replacing her. But I'm just a cleaning lady. I didn't even finish college. Neither did I, he replied. I dropped out of mid in my sophomore year to start Nexus. Degrees are overrated. Character isn't. I stared at him, tears welling up. Why would you take a chance on someone like me? Someone like you, he repeated, raising an eyebrow. You mean someone hardworking, observant, and kind enough to help a child when no one was looking? Why wouldn't I? I'm 62. I have arthritis. I can't type very fast. I don't need fast. I need thorough. And my office has excellent health care that will cover your arthritis treatments. He pointed to the folder. Read the rest of the offer. There's more. I turned the page to find a lease agreement for an apartment in a building owned by Nexus Innovations. The rent was listed as a token $500 per month, less than half what I was currently paying for my rundown one-bedroom. The building has 24-hour security, an elevator that works and is closer to the office, Robert explained. It also happens to have a vacant 2-bedroom. I thought perhaps Miguel and his mother might appreciate the 2nd bedroom. I understand she's been ill. I couldn't speak, overwhelmed by this unexpected kindness. My mother used to say that kindness wasn't kindness if it didn't cost you something. Robert continued quietly. But the truth is, Mrs. Garcia, this isn't charity. I genuinely need someone with your insight. And if helping Miguel's family in the process alleviates some of my guilt about not being there for my mother, well, that's my business. As dessert arrived, Robert Jackson outlined his plan. He would finalize the acquisition of Meridian Enterprises within 2 months. In the meantime, I would work as his assistant, learning the corporate world from the inside. And when the time came, I would return to Meridian Tower not as a cleaner, but as part of the new management team. Harrington needs to be held accountable, Robert said, his voice hardening. Not just for how he treated you, but for his financial mismanagement and his pattern of behavior with female employees. And you think I can help with that? I asked doubtfully. Mrs. Garcia, you're the only one who can. You've been invisible to these people for years. You know their secrets, their habits, their vulnerabilities. He smiled, a predatory gleam in his eye, and they have no idea what you know. As coffee was served, I realized that for the first time in years, perhaps decades, I felt something. Long forgotten hope, not just for survival, but for justice. And for the chance to finally be seen. The next morning, I stood outside the imposing glass headquarters of Nexus Innovations, wearing a new dress Robert had arranged to be delivered to my apartment. It was nothing fancy, a simple navy blue sheath that actually fit my body, unlike the shapeless uniforms I'd worn for years, but it made me feel like a different person, a person with dignity, clutching the security badge Robert had given me. I took a deep breath and entered the building. The security guard, a woman about my age. I noted with approval, checked my ID, and directed me to the executive floor. Mrs. Garcia, right on time, Robert greeted me as I stepped off the elevator, as if I were an expected and valued colleague rather than a charity case. Let me show you your office. My office, to words I never thought would apply to me. It was a small space, but with a window overlooking the city and a desk that gleamed under the morning light. A computer sat ready, alongside a leather notebook embossed with my initials, e.g., "I don't know how to thank you," I began, but Robert waved me off. "Thank me by being as observant and thorough here as you were at Meridian. Now, let's get you settled. Amanda will train you on our systems before she leaves for maternity leave next week." Amanda turned out to be a kind young woman who showed no surprise or judgment at training a woman old enough to be her grandmother. By lunchtime, my head was spinning with new information, email protocols, calendar management, filing systems, but I was determined to learn it all. "You're catching on quickly," Amanda said encouragingly. "Most of it is just common sense and attention to detail, which Robert says you have in spades." "I'm trying," I said, massaging my left knee under the desk. The pain was flaring up, as it always did when I was nervous. Amanda noticed the gesture. "You should talk to Dr. Patel. She's the company physician. Robert makes sure everyone has access to proper medical care. There's a doctor here, in the building, 2 floors down. Part of the benefits package." She smiled. "Robert believes healthy employees are productive employees." By the end of that first week, I had met with Dr. Patel, who prescribed a new medication for my arthritis covered completely by my insurance. I had moved into the new apartment, marveling at the working elevator, the secure entrance, the kitchen, with appliances that all functioned, and I had helped Miguel and his mother, Maria, move into the second bedroom. Maria had been hesitant at first, suspicious of such unexpected generosity, but her persistent cough and the reality of their precarious living situation had convinced her to accept. She was still weak from what Dr. Patel diagnosed as pneumonia, exacerbated by years of working with harsh cleaning chemicals without proper protection. "I don't understand why this man helps us," Maria said to me in Spanish as we sat in our shared living room, Miguel already asleep in his first ever bed of his own. "What does he want in return?" "Justice," I replied, thinking of Robert's face when he spoke of his mother, and perhaps redemption. The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of learning and transformation. I mastered the computer systems at Nexus, discovered I had a talent for organization that had been wasted on sorting cleaning supplies, and slowly began to stand straighter, my body responding to proper medication and the absence of constant physical labor. Robert was a demanding boss, but a fair one. He expected excellence, but provided the tools to achieve it. He never raised his voice, never belittled anyone, and insisted on being called Robert, not Mr. Jackson, by everyone from the janitor to the vice presidents. I learned that Nexus Innovations created software for healthcare systems programs that helped hospitals track patient care, manage medications, and coordinate treatment plans. Robert had founded the company after his mother received substandard care. Due to mismanaged medical records, technology should serve humanity, not the other way around. He often said in meetings, "Every line of code we write should make someone's life better, not just easier." Meanwhile, in our apartment, Maria grew stronger with proper medical treatment and rest. She insisted on cooking for Miguel and me, filling our home with the sense of Guatemalan cuisine. Miguel thrived in his new school, where Robert had arranged for him to receive extra tutoring to catch up after years of disrupted education. One evening, about 6 weeks after my first day at Nexus, Robert called me into his office. "The Meridian acquisition is finalized," he said without preamble. "We take control next week. Are you ready?" I felt a flutter of anxiety but nodded. "Yes, good. Because I need you to go back there, not as my assistant, but as something more." He handed me another folder. "Read this." Inside was a new job title, Senior Partner, Meridian Division, Nexus Innovations, and a salary that made my previous offer look modest by comparison. "I don't understand," I said, echoing my words from our first dinner. "This is a senior executive position." Yes, it is. And you're going to fill it. But I don't have the experience, the education, Elena, he said, using my first name for the first time. Do you know what I saw when I looked into your background? I saw a woman who raised a daughter alone after losing her husband to cancer. A woman who put that daughter through college on a cleaner's salary. A woman who's been taking online business courses at community college for the past 5 years, working toward a degree one class at a time. I stared at him, shocked that he knew about my secret ambition, the business classes I took at night after my shifts. Too embarrassed to tell anyone, certain I was too old to ever use the knowledge. You didn't mention that in our first meeting, he said, a hint of accusation in his tone. I didn't think it mattered, I admitted. A few classes don't make me qualified for it. Stop. Robert's voice was firm. The classes show your character, your determination. The qualification comes from what you've observed at Meridian for 8 years. You know that company better than anyone. You know its people, its culture, its flaws. He leaned forward, his expression intense. Harrington and his cronies have been stealing from shareholders, harassing employees, and running that company into the ground. They've created a toxic culture where people like you are treated as disposable. I want you to help me change that. How? By going back as part of my leadership team, by identifying the people worth keeping and the ones who need to go, by implementing policies that ensure everyone from executives to maintenance staff is treated with dignity. I thought about it, imagining walking into Meridian Tower not as invisible Elena the cleaner, but as Ms. Garcia, senior partner. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. What about your assistant position? I asked. Amanda's replacement starts tomorrow. Smart young man, straight out of college, eager to learn. He smiled, much like you were at his age, I imagine. I looked down at the folder in my hands, at the title that represented not just a job but a reckoning. When do I start? We go to Meridian together next Monday. The board has approved the acquisition, but most of the staff doesn't know yet. His smile turned grim, including Harrington. The weekend before my return to Meridian Tower was the longest of my life. I alternated between nervous anticipation and outright terror. Maria sensed my anxiety and made all my favorite foods, while Miguel regaled me with stories about his new friends at school, trying to distract me. Sunday night, I stood before the mirror in my bedroom, studying my reflection. 2 months had changed me in ways I hadn't anticipated. My face looked less haggard. The constant pain lines around my eyes softened. My hair, which I'd always kept pulled back in a severe bun, now framed my face in a silver bob, professionally cut for the first time in decades. The woman staring back at me wasn't young. Nothing could erase 62 years of life, but she looked steady, confident, dignified. I thought of Mr. Harrington's words. The only person still here is the cleaning lady, and she doesn't matter. On Monday morning, I would show him just how wrong he was. In my pocket, I carried a small token, the earring I'd found in Harrington's trash the night I was fired. I'd kept it all this time, not really knowing why. Now it felt like a talisman, a physical reminder of how the mighty could fall through their own arrogance and cruelty. Mrs. Garcia, Miguel's voice came from the doorway. Are you okay? I turned to him. This child who had given me a pack of gum when I needed kindness more than anything. Yes, Mio. I'm okay. Are you scared about tomorrow? A little, I admitted. But sometimes being scared means you're doing something important. He nodded solemnly. Like when I first started selling gum, I was scared the big kids would take my money or the police would make me leave. But Mama needed medicine, so I did it anyway. Out of the mouths of babes, exactly like that. You'll be great, he said with childlike certainty. You're the nicest person I know, and Mr. Jackson believes in you. That night, I slept better than I had in years, and in the morning, I put on the new suit Robert had insisted on adding to my growing wardrobe, a tailored gray pantsuit that somehow managed to make my arthritis-scurved spine look straight and strong. Ready? Robert asked when I met him in the lobby of our building, looking impeccable in one of his trademark perfect suits. Ready, I confirmed, and was surprised to find I meant it. The car that delivered us to Meridian Tower was the same sleek black sedan from the day Robert had found me. As we pulled up to the curb, the same curb where Miguel had once sat selling gum, The same curb where I had sobbed after being fired. I felt a strange sense of symmetry, remember? Robert said as we stepped out of the car, "You belong here. Now, you've earned this." I nodded, squaring my shoulders, and walked through the lobby doors with my head high. Joey, the security guard who had escorted me out 2 months earlier, did a double take when he saw me enter alongside Robert Jackson. His eyes widened in recognition, then confusion, then something like respect. "Good morning, Mrs. Garcia," he said, recovering quickly. "It's good to see you again." "Good morning, Joey," I replied, smiling warmly. "How's your mother doing?" "Much better, thank you for asking." He looked at my visitor badge, clearly trying to reconcile my new appearance with his memory of the cleaner he'd known. "You're here with Nexus Innovations." "That's right, Mr. Jackson, and I have a meeting with the board." Joey's eyebrows shot up, but he nodded professionally. "Yes, ma'am. They're expecting you in the main conference room on the executive floor." As we rode the elevator, the same elevator I had once cleaned every night, I felt a surreal sense of displacement. How many times had I wiped fingerprints from these same walls, emptied the small trash bin in the corner, polished the brass handrail until it gleamed? Now I stood on the other side of the invisible barrier, the one that separated important people from those who served them. "Nervous?" Robert asked quietly as the numbers climbed. "Terrified," I admitted, "but also ready." He nodded approvingly. "Good. Use that energy." The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor, my old domain. The reception area was exactly as I remembered it, down to the arrangement of magazines on the glass coffee table. The receptionist, Amber, who had never once looked me in the eye during my 8 years of cleaning her desk, glanced up with her practiced professional smile. "Good morning, Mr. Jackson?" she asked, her gaze sliding past me as if I weren't there. "Yes, and this is Elena Garcia, senior partner at Nexus Innovations," Robert replied smoothly. "We have at 10 a.m. with the board." Amber's eyes snapped to me, widening slightly as recognition dawned. "Mrs. Garcia, from the cleaning staff." "Yes." I finished for her. "Good morning, Amber. The orchid on your desk looks lovely. Still using that special plant food I recommended." She flushed pink, clearly remembering how she had once complained about her dying plant within my hearing, and I had quietly left a small bottle of plant food on her desk the next day. She had never thanked me, probably had never even connected the anonymous gift to the invisible woman who emptied her trash. "Yes, thank you. It's working well." She fumbled with her desk phone. "I'll let them know you're here." As we waited, I noticed other employees beginning to filter in for the day. A few gave me curious glances, clearly trying to place my face. None succeeded, though I recognized every one of them knew their habits, their messes, which ones left kind notes for the cleaning staff at Christmas and which ones complained. If a single paper clip was moved on their desks, "The board is ready for you," Amber announced. Standing to lead us down the hallway, the main conference room was at the far end of the floor, past the very office where I had seen Mr. Harrington with Melanie Richardson. As we approached, I saw Melanie herself emerging from her office, coffee cup in hand. She froze when she saw me, coffee sloshing dangerously close to the rim of her cup. "Mrs. Garcia?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Ms. Richardson." I acknowledged with a polite nod. "Good morning." Before she could respond, Amber was opening the conference room door, and Robert was guiding me inside with a gentle hand at my elbow. The boardroom fell silent as we entered. Every senior executive was present, including Mr. Harrington at the head of the table, looking pale and strained. His eyes widened when they landed on me, a flicker of recognition quickly masked by confusion. "Ladies and gentlemen," the chairman of the board, a silver-haired man named Walter Davis, began, "Thank you for joining us this morning. As you know, Meridian Enterprises has entered into an acquisition agreement with Nexus Innovations. I'd like to introduce Robert Jackson, founder and CEO of Nexus, who will outline the transition plan." Robert stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. "Thank you, Mr. Davis. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your cooperation during this transition. As of 9 o'clock this morning, Meridian Enterprises is officially a division of Nexus Innovations." He gestured to me. "This is Elena Garcia, senior partner at Nexus and your new chief operating officer for the Meridian Division. The shock in the room was palpable. Harrington's face flushed deep red as he stared at me, recognition now fully dawning. I believe some of you may already know Mrs. Garcia. Robert continued smoothly. She worked in this building until quite recently. This is absurd, Harrington burst out, standing abruptly. You can't possibly expect us to report to a cleaning woman. The room went deadly silent. Even those who hadn't recognized me now stared openly, whispers beginning to circulate around the table. Mr. Harrington, Robert's voice cut through the murmurs. I suggest you reconsider your tone. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, Jackson, Harrington continued, his face now mottled with anger. But this is Meridian Enterprises, not some charity case for your pet projects. I felt a familiar sensation, the desire to shrink, to become invisible, to avoid conflict. But then I remembered the casual cruelty of "she doesn't matter," and something hardened inside me. Mr. Harrington, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, I understand your surprise. Change can be difficult to accept, especially when it challenges our preconceptions about who deserves a seat at the table. Harrington's mouth opened and closed, fish-like, as if unable to process that I was addressing him directly. For 8 years, I cleaned your office, emptied your trash, and listened while you made decisions that affected this company and its people. During that time, I also completed my business degree online with honors. This wasn't entirely true. I was still 3 classes short of my degree. But Robert had encouraged this strategic embellishment. I know every inch of this building, every employee's habits, and exactly how this company operates both officially and unofficially. Melanie Richardson, who had slipped into the room during the commotion, went pale. Furthermore, I continued, during my time here, I witnessed numerous incidents of mismanagement, harassment, and questionable ethical decisions. I opened my portfolio and slid a document across the table, including your affair with Ms. Richardson, which violates company policy regarding relationships between managers and direct reports. Melanie shrank in her chair as all eyes turned to her. This is a witch hunt, Harrington sputtered. You can't prove, actually, Robert interrupted. We can prove quite a lot. Your creative accounting, for instance, which nearly bankrupted this company. The board has been fully briefed. Walter Davis cleared his throat. Mr. Harrington has tendered his resignation, effective immediately. Harrington went pale. This was clearly news to him. You can't do this to me. I built this company, and then you nearly destroyed it. The chairman replied coldly. The severance package is generous. Richard, another board member, added. More generous than you deserve, given the circumstances. Harrington turned to me, eyes blazing. This is your doing. Just because I had to let you go, you fired me without cause or warning after 8 years of service because I accidentally witnessed something that could damage your reputation. I said calmly, you didn't even have the courage to do it yourself. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the gold hoop earring I'd kept all these weeks. You overlooked a detail, Mr. Harrington, just like you overlooked me. I placed the earring on the table. Ms. Richardson lost this in your office the night I saw you together. I found it in your trash. Melanie's hand flew to her ear, fingers finding the single earring that had been missing its mate for 2 months. Security, Robert called. 2 officers appeared at the door. Please escort Mr. Harrington from the building. His personal items will be sent to his home. As Harrington was led away, shouting threats about lawsuits and retribution, I felt a strange emptiness where I'd expected satisfaction. Revenge wasn't as sweet as I'd imagined. Instead, I looked around the table at the shocked faces of the executives, some guilty, some frightened, all suddenly aware that the invisible woman had seen everything. But there was more to do than simply gloat. I'd spent weeks preparing for this moment, reviewing Meridian's financial records, personnel files, and operational procedures. I knew which departments were functioning well and which were disasters waiting to happen. I knew which managers treated their staff with respect and which ones ruled by fear and intimidation. I want to make something clear, I said, addressing the room. I'm not here for revenge. I'm not here to clean house, except where necessary. I know what it's like to fear for your job, to worry about paying rent. If you work hard and treat Others with respect. You have nothing to fear from me. The tension in the room eased slightly. However, I continued, there will be changes, starting with how we treat our support staff. The people who clean your offices, serve your food, and secure your building are not invisible. They're human beings deserving of dignity and fair treatment. I outlined the new minimum wage for all Meridian employees, $20 per hour, more than double what I'd earned as a cleaner. I explained the improved healthcare benefits, the educational assistance program, and the new policy requiring executives to spend 1 day each quarter working alongside support staff to better understand their challenges. These changes aren't just moral imperatives, I explained. They're good business. Employees who feel valued work harder, stay longer, and care more about the company's success. The meeting continued for another hour as we outlined the transition plan. Some executives nodded along eagerly, clearly relieved to be working for a company with ethical leadership. Others sat stiffly, resistant to change, no doubt already updating their resumes in their heads. That was fine. We didn't need people who couldn't adapt to a culture of mutual respect. As the meeting wrapped up, Robert pulled me aside. You did well, he said quietly. How do you feel? I considered this, overwhelmed, but ready. There's someone here to see you, he said, gesturing to the door. Miguel stood there, grinning widely, clutching a small bouquet of daisies. Behind him was his mother, Maria, looking proud in her new position as supervisor of the building's housekeeping staff, a job Robert had created specifically for her, with proper training, equipment, and a living wage. You did it, Mrs. Garcia, Miguel exclaimed, handing me the flowers. Mr. Jackson said I could come see your first day. As I hugged him, I caught sight of myself in the conference room's glass wall, no longer bent with the weight of invisibility, standing tall despite my arthritic knees. Sí, mío, I said softly. We did it. From invisible to indispensable, from disposable to dignified. It wasn't just about proving Harrington wrong or getting revenge for his cruelty. It was about creating a world where no one would be overlooked or discarded simply because of their position or age or accent. A world where everyone mattered. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share with someone who appreciates tales of unexpected justice.